you are in the league for a Sony A7 III or a Sony A6400, this video might help you out to choose the best one. As you know, I lately got the Sony A6400 for my Bcam, and this video will resemble all the main differences between the A6400 and A7 III. We will be mostly talking about video features and should you actually get the Sony A6400 for your Sony A7 III Bcam setup. These days, the Sony A7 III got the 3.0 firmware, resembling some features that the Sony A6400 introduced, like the animal AI focus and the intervalometer for time-lapse. Still, there is no tracking feature touch-to-tracking focus with the Sony A7 III. That is still available only on the A6400. Well, for the first thing we have the price. $1,000 for the A6400 and around $2,000 for the A7 III. There is no crop in 4K, and both cameras use the Hall sensor when filming in 4K, and they are actually downscaling a much bigger resolution to make your 4K footage look crisp. When using your full frame lenses on your APS-C crop body like the Sony A6400, your full frame lenses will work in APS-C mode cropped by a factor of 1.5. The Sony A7 III and the Sony A6400 packs actually the same resolution, even if the Sony A6400 is a smaller version APS-C sensor. Having the same amount of pixels on the biggest sensor, the Sony A7 III will be much better in low light. The Sony A6400 is lighter, making it more suitable for lightweight gimbals like the Webuild Lab. The Sony A7 III has optical image stabilization in body. The Sony A6400 doesn't. It will be only available if you have an optical steady shot built in your lens when using the A6400. So let's have a look on some handheld shots for the Sony A6400 and the Sony A7 III. Well, if you want an in-body image stabilization combined with the optical steady shot of your lens, you are a better way going for the Sony A7 III. They have the same S-Log2 and S-Log3 flat profiles, and when using them with the same color correction, you can get a perfect color match. The Sony A7 III screen tilts less than the Sony A6400, that can actually go all the way up for a selfie shot. For that mic option, we'll have to get an adapter or a cage to move the microphone out of the way. The Sony A6400 has less customizable buttons than the Sony A7 III. The Sony A7 III has a joystick option to move your focus point or navigate through your menus. On the Sony A6400, there is no such option. The Sony A7 III has two SD card slots, enabling to record seamlessly on two SD cards, making a backup immediately. On the Sony A6400, there is only one SD card option. The Sony A6400 doesn't have an USB-C port and a headphone jack out, like the Sony A7 III. The Sony A7 III battery will last much more longer than the smaller Sony A6400. Actually, from my experience, 40 to 50% longer. Sorry for the 3-minute delay, I forgot that the Sony A7 III has a recording limit. I compensated that. Both cameras were filming in 4K, 100 megabit per second, S-Log2, manual focus to avoid lens focusing. The Sony A6400 had 1%, when on the Sony A7 III remained almost half juice, coming up with 48% battery left. Well, for the battery test, the Sony A7 III is the clear winner here. They have the same recording file formats, they have the same recording frame rates and speeds, all the way up to 120 frames per second, Full HD and 4K 1080p. They have the same customizable macro setting options, so you are really fine for your aspect ratios, and they also pack the same feature for the customizable audio levels. On the Sony A7 III you can adjust various setting options for the steady shot. On the Sony A6400 there is only the option to turn on the steady shot when you have an optical steady shot lens mounted on. They both offer the same zoom capability, selecting the optical zoom only, clear image zoom and digital zoom. On the A6400 there is an option to select the viewfinder frame rate. They both have the zebra setting overexposure option. On the Sony A7 III you will have two dial wheels for the shutter speed and aperture, where on the Sony A6400 you have only one wheel, so you will have to control with the front wheel the other settings. On the last movie mode screen there is an option that makes the A6400 stand apart from the Sony A7 III. It's the touch focus tracking feature, where you can select the touch tracking option and the 6400 will try to track any object that you touch to track and maintain focus on it. This feature works in 4K and Full HD up to 60p. For 120 frames per second there is no touchscreen capability option. So this feature will make a great difference between the Sony A7 III and the A6400. This is why I got my Sony A6400 for my Beacon. If I need that tracking function, well, I will use the Sony A6400. If I need that great optical steady shot built-in feature, well, I will use the Sony A7 III. They match perfectly in color science and they grade exactly the same with the same look. If you didn't notice, I don't have bokeh lights anymore. I am leaving them for the past. I am returning back to my studio and to my new rebuilt apartment. And we are going straight to my favorite one, comments time. We have you a Schwein. Can you speak normally, not like Mickey Mouse, please? Nope, I am the Mickey Mouse evil brother. We have another comment from Taigo Videomaker. What would happen in a wedding where there are so many people in the frame and I want to autofocus on the bride? Well, I didn't test yet in a wedding situation the Sony A6400 and how it copes this tracking feature and face recognition. I will test it out and come back with a solution. We have another great comment from Michel. Amazing shooting. I have a question. What is the setting video for all subject in focus? Well, I was using a wide-angle lens and I stopped it down to f10. That was all. And well, yeah, I was at autofocus continuous on a flexible spot on the subject, but it was kinda all in focus, so it doesn't matter. Instagram feature Canex Films. He is a great passionate filmmaker. Thumbs up if you liked it, subscribe with the bell ring icon to get notified every time I make a new video, and see you on my next one in my new studio and apartment. Bye!